On Radio 97, we are talking law with Despina Priala, and just like Chantel from Robina, who sent in a question, you too are allowed to ask questions, be part of the program. What you need to do is pop the details into an email and send it to us. And the best way to get the info there is by going to radio97.com.au, all our contact info right there on the front page, radio97.com.au.
Thank you, Wayno. And Despina, there's been a bit of hype around Shannon Fentiman. She's announced some new strata reform laws in Queensland.
The Attorney General has been very busy.
Very busy.
It seems so. It seems so. Hopefully this is a good thing. I think it will be. So she announced some reforms to strata laws in Queensland. Very, very exciting. Everyone's talking about it in our world anyway. So what she's talking about is reforms covering a certain interesting topic. So we're going to go through that. But the reforms have been announced. It'll be an arduous process to go through the proposed changes. So we're probably looking at the changes coming through towards the end of the year, hopefully, maybe earlier. Okay. So they're not laws now, so let's be clear, they're not in place, they're not taking effect now. But we're talking about reforms, and we're talking about important reforms for future strata living in Queensland. And as you know, there are so many strata lots in Queensland. I think there is about 520,000 strata lots in Queensland, to my knowledge. And that's huge. Yeah. So this affects many, many people. So let's go through them. So the big one, the proposed reforms, part of the package, the big one is that she wants to change the current laws, which stipulate that if a developer comes along and wants to, buy out all the lots in a particular building and then redevelop the building, particularly the aging buildings we're talking about, ones that have been around for decades, then the current laws currently provide that all lot owners have to sign off. So it's got to be a unanimous resolution.
100%. Everyone.
Yes, okay. Yes. So if that one or two, people in a building hold out, well, that's, the way it is. Now the reformers are talking about a 75% special resolution. Yeah. So there will be a minority sitting there that may not permit this to go through. And this is what the reformers are talking about. But it's interesting because we don't have all the details yet. And what the information that's been published so far, what it's actually saying is it seems to be saying that it's going to be targeting only older buildings. So not, say, newer strata schemes. So those older aging buildings that are dilapidated, apparently, and that really require a complete, knockdown redevelopment type of scenario.
So would you say, sorry, Despina, those built around the 70s, 80s sort of period?
Well, yes, potentially, yes, or even later, depending on the quality of the bill, which I want to get to after we talk about some of the other reforms. So 75%. So that's going to be interesting to see how that's accepted. Another interesting reform is the issue about prohibiting smoking on balconies. Okay. That's a big health issue, isn't it? And there was a case that we talked about last year on the show involving the Arctique building in Surfers Paradise. And there has been that one case. And that case was about someone on the balcony being a chain smoker and having drifting smoke going up to the balconies above and causing a nuisance and a health hazard to other lot owners. And they were actually prohibited from doing that. But the problem with the current laws is that you can't provide a complete ban on smoking on balconies. It's not permitted under the current laws, and they're trying to change that. So currently, if you've got someone on the balcony creating this nuisance and health hazard for you as another lot owner, interfering with your use and enjoyment of your balcony, you've actually got to get over a pretty high threshold. You've got to establish how often they're smoking. Is it constant? Is it only intermittent? The fact that it's drifting up in your direction, the fact that it is causing a nuisance and a health hazard to you. And that's, you've got to get over all of those thresholds to then establish that, well, this person shouldn't be doing this activity.
Yep. And it sounds like some of those things would be rather hard to prove.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, to my knowledge, we only have that one case. the Artigue case. So that's what they're looking at providing as part of the reforms. Another part of the package with the reforms is to not have any complete bans on pets in apartments. Now, people listening out there might say, oh, well, there's pets all the time in buildings. Yes, and there's always a bylaw for animals. But typically, in 99% of the cases with your bylaw, there are bylaw conditions of having a pet. And some of those conditions are unreasonable and some of them are quite restrictive. So, for example, typically you'll have in bylaws, and I've read numerous bylaws concerning animals and pets in high rises or stratas, and it's got there a weight restriction, right? Or even a height restriction. So, it might have typically 10 kilos is the max, sometimes 15. I've seen those. And then what do you do in situations where you've got a dog like mine, which you might be able to hear at the moment, not sure. He's just
snoring.
He's a big boy.
Snoring at the moment. He just sleeps all day, right? Very lazy bulldog, and hardly barks, not a nuisance at all, but he's 27 kilos.
He's a big
right?
boy.
So he'd be off the list automatically just based on his weight, which I think is unreasonable. So they're looking, I think, at changing this. I call it a complete ban, because if you don't meet those conditions, well, you're banned from having your pet purely because of a weight, height restriction, or some other condition listed in your bylaw.
Yeah, and especially around the Gold Coast, we know at the moment with the rental crisis that pets and rentals, it's just not working, and it's making it so much harder for everyone. If you've had a pet for 10 years and it's 20 kilos and you can't go to all these apartments and units, and it's just such a headache. So it sounds like a good thing.
I think it's a great thing. And we're talking, as you say, moving forward, I think there's quite a bit of research and evidence that, particularly coming out of COVID, people are getting pets more and more. And it's really conducive to your, to help you with your mental health and general health and well-being. So it's quite prevalent.
Working from home, everyone's getting a pet to have
exactly
at home. Yeah.
Yes, so I think these reforms would be a good thing in that for pets and dealing with that issue. The other one, very briefly, is it's part of the reforms is apparently allowing the towing of vehicles. So it's often a problem. People are parked somewhere, in a building, and they're blocking access. So there's always this contention: can the body corporate tow that vehicle or not? And which company do they use, and who gets the fine, and who pays for that? And it's quite a contentious. Yes. So they're trying.
That's another segment in itself. I didn't know that was such a hot topic. Okay.
It is. So that's an interesting one. So depending on what's going to be in the laws, it might be quite good for strata. But look, going back to the reforms and about potentially allowing this, strata schemes with a 75% resolution to then be bought out by someone else, a developer, for example, and then demolished and rebuilt. And if it's targeting aging strata schemes that are dilapidated, that's fine. But I'd be curious to see, well, what type of threshold and what type of evidence do you have to provide to support that? And then, of course, you've got other sort of issues that I think are circulating around that perhaps other people aren't really talking about. And that really is generally the quality of the building itself and the construction when it was done. Nobody's really talking about those issues. And I think, what about looking at the quality, having higher standards for building in Queensland and also around Australia, increasing builder warranty periods, raising building standards. So that's really, really important as well. And I think the Property Council of Australia has also made those arguments recently. And I think that's important when we talk about strata reform and saying, well, heavily dilapidated, rapidly deteriorating assets, which has been a quote from the statements that have come out recently. Sure, okay, fine. But how about we go back further and look at the quality of builds moving forward, raising that building standard, stronger consumer protection laws, and increasing builder warranties. I think all of that as a package also needs to be looked at quite heavily by the government, but I suppose one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And then we have to find builders and equipment and materials, and that's another issue. But anyway, a very interesting topic, and hopefully we have some answers end of this year about the proposed changes. Thank you so much again, Despina. And if anyone listening does have any questions for you, where can they go?
So they can phone the office 55291 294, reach out to us on the email if that's your preference, info@prialalegal.com.au, and be sure that any updates with these reforms, you'll be the first to know.
Right
Very
here
good.
on Talking Law. We'll catch you next week.
See you then.
See you then.
Are you confused about legal jargon? Do you need legal advice but don't know where to turn? Tune in to Talking Law with Despina Priala every Thursday morning at 8:30 on Radio 97. Despina, a leading lawyer with over 20 years of experience, will demystify the law and provide practical advice to help you navigate legal issues. Whether it's a family matter, a property dispute, or a business concern, Talking Law has got you covered. Don't miss out on this valuable resource. Tune in to Talking Law with Despina Priala every Thursday morning at 8:30 on Radio 97.